You keep trying to be consistent, but every few days, something breaks, distraction slips in, motivation dies, and suddenly, you're back at zero. You open your journal, stare at your goals. You promised yourself you'd change this time. But the same loop plays again. Start strong, fade out, vanish. You think it's a problem with willpower, or maybe you're just lazy. Maybe you're not meant to be one of those disciplined people. The ones who rise at 5 a.m., eat clean, stay focused. The ones who build empires while you're stuck restarting. But what if I told you? Consistency isn't about feeling motivated. It's about seeing the war behind your eyes. The Stoics knew this. They lived in a world that pulled them in every direction. Power, pleasure, fame, fear. And yet, they moved like stone, unshaken, unwavering. Not because they had more time, but because they had fewer inner conflicts. Marcus Aurelius wasn't born with more discipline than you. He trained his mind. Like a soldier trains with his sword, he cut through distraction with thought and reminded himself, daily, you don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. He knew that the first battle was not out there, but in here, where the craving for comfort whispers, where the brain begs for stimulation, where fear poses as logic and convinces you to stop. Consistency dies when the mind is at war with itself, when your body wants progress, but your brain wants relief, and you're stuck in that quiet civil war. You don't need more motivation. You need mental armor, not flashy, not loud, just something unshakable, invisible, and earned. In this video, I'll walk you through 3 Stoic mental shifts, not hacks, not habits, but deep, grounded mindset changes that helped Roman emperors stay disciplined in chaos. And that can help you stay consistent. In a world built to break your focus, because you don't rise by accident, you rise by design, and the mind must be forged. Before the results can follow, most people wait to feel ready. They say, I'll start when I'm in the mood, or I just don't feel like it today. But if the Stoics had lived by emotion, they would have crumbled under the weight of empire. The first Stoic shift is this: detach from your feelings, because you are not your thoughts, you are not your moods, you are the one who chooses what to do in spite of them. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why? Because most people are addicted to approval, and consistency breaks every time that addiction wins. When you depend on feeling motivated, you become a slave to invisible tides. But when you act regardless of how you feel, you become dangerous. You become consistent. You become free. Marcus Aurelius would wake up in the cold Roman mornings, tired, sore, heavy-eyed, and he'd say to himself, I was made to do this work, not to lie under the covers. He didn't wait for the mood to strike. He struck first. You don't rise by feeling ready. You rise by acting like it's your duty. Your mind says, I don't feel like it. You respond, it doesn't matter. Because you are the commander, not the emotion, not the voice, not the impulse. And the moment you start acting like that, your consistency stops collapsing because you've stepped outside the prison of temporary moods and entered the freedom of consistent command. You train this by repetition, tiny daily acts, waking up and doing the work, even if it's 60%, especially when it's 60%, because that's when discipline is forged, not in the mood, but in the absence of it. So next time you feel resistance, don't fight it. Observe it, detach from it, move anyway. That's stoicism. That's consistency. That's power. And if this message is hitting something inside you, if you're tired of starting over, tired of collapsing back into old cycles, then this is the kind of discipline that will change your life. Pause here, take a breath, and if this is the kind of energy you want more of, subscribe to the channel, because we're just getting started. You could be brilliant, you could be disciplined, but if your mind is noisy, if you let every notification, every random impulse, every anxious itch pull your attention away, your consistency will bleed out in silence. Seneca once said, to be everywhere is to be nowhere. And that's what modern life has become, an endless scroll of nowhere. Most people don't lack willpower. They lack clarity. They don't know what matters anymore because their mind is full of junk. And consistency? It dies in a cluttered mind, drowned in the noise of 10,000 trivial choices. Here's the second Stoic shift: starve distraction, feed direction. Remove the low-quality inputs that drain your mental energy. That means deleting apps, blocking dopamine triggers, silencing the chaos you've gotten used to calling normal. Think of it like this. Would Marcus Aurelius check his scroll 200 times a day? Would Epictetus pause his teachings to see how many views he got? Would Seneca need ambient, lo-fi beats and a to-do list app to write his letters? No, because they understood one truth. Attention is your life force, and where it leaks, your potential leaks with it. You can't focus if you're always reacting. You can't be consistent if you're always distracted. You can't build an empire with a broken compass. This shift is about reclaiming your inner silence, the silence that allows clarity, the clarity that gives you focus, and the focus that builds your legacy. If you want to be consistent, you need a fortress for your mind, walls built from routines, gates guarded by intention, and every unnecessary input. It doesn't get in. Start small. Turn off notifications. Designate no phone hours. Give your deep work the sacred space it deserves. Because without focus, you're not failing. You're being stolen from. Bit by bit, scroll by scroll. And the thieves are subtle, but you're done being a victim. You're done leaking energy to things that don't build you. And once you kill that noise, consistency becomes inevitable because you're not scattered anymore. You're deliberate. Ready for shift 3? It's the one that ties everything together. The mindset of Stoic self-ownership, where every excuse, every delay, and every false start gets stripped away. Let me take you there. Let's drop the fluff for a second. You know what really breaks consistency? Not laziness, not lack of time, not burnout. It's blame. You blame your schedule, your mood, your job, your past, your brain chemistry, and maybe those things are true. But here's what Stoicism teaches. They don't matter, because until you own your actions, you'll keep outsourcing your life. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Now flip that. If life succeeds in breaking your routine, your consistency, your mind allowed it. This third Stoic shift is brutal but freeing. Radical self-responsibility, no more outsourcing discipline to motivation, no more waiting for the right time, no more pretending that the version of you scrolling at 1 a.m. is resting. You call it what it is, self-abandonment. And then you stop because the Stoic doesn't ask, do I feel like it today? They ask, what must be done? That's it. That's the switch. It's not about being perfect. It's about being honest. It's about catching your excuses mid-sentence and saying, no, I'm better than this. Consistency isn't sexy. It's quiet. It's waking up and doing the same thing again and again and again. It's showing up when no one claps. It's boring until one day it's brilliant and people call you gifted when all you were was relentless. The Stoics didn't wait to feel ready. They acted. They didn't explain their goals 50 times. They lived them. And so will you. From now on, you are the reason it happens or the reason it doesn't. And that truth, that's not pressure. That's power. Because when you own your discipline, your days stack up like bricks. Your habits forge identity. And your life becomes a reflection of your values, not your feelings. That's the final shift. No more blaming. No more negotiating with laziness. You are the builder, the architect, the operator, and everything you want. It's downstream from that identity. But how do you keep this going? How do you build real-world systems around these mental shifts so that consistency becomes your default mode? That's exactly what we'll explore next. Ready? Now you've made the 3 shifts. You've accepted that motivation is unreliable. You've chosen identity over emotion, and you've owned your discipline. But what next? Because clarity without a system is just inspiration, and inspiration fades. What you need is structure, and that's what the Stoics were masters of. Order. They didn't just think differently. They lived differently. They scheduled reflection. They tracked behavior. They reviewed their actions every night. Not to punish themselves, but to understand themselves. That's where consistency is born. In the quiet places, not the motivational Mondays or new month, new me posts, but in the way you design your day, the way you trap discipline into your environment. Here's how. 1. Anchor habits to identity. Don't say, I want to write more. Say, I'm a writer, so I write. Don't say, I want to work out. Say, I'm an athlete in training. This rewires your brain to act in alignment, not on emotion. 2. Use time blocking like Marcus Aurelius used his mornings. The Emperor of Rome journaled his values each morning. You can block 9 to 11 a.m. for deep work or 7 to 8 a.m. for your mind, your body, your solitude. Treat it like prayer, like armor, because that's what routine is. It's your shield against chaos. 3. Daily reflection. At night, take 5 minutes. Ask, what did I do well? Where did I act out of emotion instead of principle? What will I improve tomorrow? Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus, they all did this, because without reflection, there is no growth, only repetition. 4. Subtract to win. You don't need more habits. You need fewer distractions. The Stoic doesn't chase 10 goals. He masters 1. You want consistency? Remove the triggers that break it. Delete the app. Block the site. Shut the door. Choose peace over noise. Purpose over novelty. It's not glamorous. It's not viral. But it works. It's discipline by design. And once you do this for a week, 2 weeks, your brain starts craving the structure, because structure equals safety equals momentum. And when you fall off, because you will, you don't quit, you reset. Not next month, not next Monday. Now, because the Stoic knows a bad moment doesn't define the day, a bad day doesn't define the week, and a relapse doesn't erase the identity. You simply return to the path, to the practice, to the person you said you'd become. That's the system, not perfect, but practiced, not rigid, but reliable, not loud, but lasting. So now you've got the mindsets and the system, but what happens when life gets heavy? When you feel stuck, tired, even broken, and you're ready to give up entirely? We'll talk about that and how Stoics stayed consistent even in suffering. But before we go on, if this video has helped you reset your focus, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next part. Let's continue. So what happens when the plan breaks? When your routine gets hijacked? When life throws you curveballs, late nights, bad news, heartbreak, failure, fatigue? Do you wait for things to calm down? Do you pause your progress until life becomes convenient again? The Stoics would laugh at that idea because they knew life was never supposed to be convenient. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire during war, plague, betrayal, chaos. But still, every morning, he returned to his journal, not because things were calm, but because they weren't. That's what real consistency looks like. Doing your work regardless of the weather. Because consistency isn't built in comfort, it's built in the storm, in the mess, in the days when you don't want to get out of bed, but you do, because who you are matters more than how you feel. Here's how to anchor your discipline through chaos. 1. Shrink the task. Keep the standard. The Stoics didn't aim for perfection. They aimed for presence. If you can't do the full routine, do a version of it. Too tired to write 500 words? Write 50. Too busy for a full workout? Do 10 push-ups, because identity isn't built on how much, it's built on showing up. 2. Expect life to test you. The Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum. They imagined everything going wrong, not to scare themselves, but to prepare themselves. So when hardship came, they didn't say, "Why me?" They said, "Ah, you've arrived." And they adapted. You won't always control your circumstances, but you'll always control your response. And in that space, between what happens and what you choose, that's where consistency lives. 3. Redefine the win. Some days, the win is completing your full to-do list. Other days, the win is not giving up, even showing up tired, distracted, or 10 minutes late. That's still a win, because the Stoic doesn't measure progress by intensity, but by integrity. 4. Detach from results, attach to process. Did Epictetus control whether people listened to him? No. Did he control how many students came to his lectures? No. But he showed up every day because his role was to teach, not to be applauded. Your job is not to be perfect, it's to persist. Don't get seduced by outcomes, just fall in love with the rhythm of showing up. And when life knocks you down, don't ask for a lighter burden, ask for stronger shoulders. That's what Stoicism gives you. Not a perfect life, but a powerful lens, a way to keep moving forward, even when everything around you is falling apart. So now you've seen how the Stoics stay grounded in chaos. But in the next part, We'll dig into why you still fall off, even when you know all this. Even when you've read the books, set the goals, built the system, you still break your promise to yourself. Why? Let's break it down. But for now, tap that like button if you've ever had to rebuild yourself mid-chaos, and get ready to discover the most subtle self-sabotage the Stoics warned us about. Let's keep going. Let's be honest, you don't always fall off because life got hard, or because you didn't have time, or because the system was wrong. Sometimes, you fall off because you betrayed yourself. You said you'd wake up early, but you hit snooze. You said you'd write, work, train, stay focused, but you didn't. Not because of anything outside you, but because you silently gave yourself permission to break the deal. And here's the thing. The Stoics were brutal about this. They believed that every broken promise, even the private ones, corrodes the soul, not because of what it does to your goals, but because of what it does to your self-respect. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And mastery begins with keeping your word, especially when no one's watching, especially when you could get away with breaking it, because that's when integrity actually matters. Let me ask you, when you tell yourself, "I'll start tomorrow," how many times have you said that? And how many times has tomorrow actually changed anything? The Stoics would challenge you to flip the question, if not now, when? If not today, why not? If you don't respect your own word, why should the world take you seriously? Here's how to stop the cycle of self-betrayal. 1. Make fewer promises, but keep every one. Don't overcommit. Don't say yes to every goal, habit, or hustle trend. Say yes to what matters, and then treat it like a sacred vow, because discipline isn't about motivation, it's about honor. 2. Build identity through action. Stop telling yourself who you are, start proving it. The Stoics didn't care about affirmations or vision boards. They cared about actions. If you want to be consistent, act consistent. If you want to be disciplined, act disciplined. Identity follows behavior, not the other way around. 3. Use discomfort as a compass. You'll want to quit. Good. That's the signal you're on the edge of growth. Every time you resist an impulse, every time you hold the line, you send a message to yourself. I'm not who I used to be. 4. Forgive fast, recommit faster. You will slip. The Stoics knew this. But they also knew the danger is not in falling, it's in staying down. So when you break your word, don't spiral, recommit instantly. Make amends with action, not guilt, because shame is a weight, but responsibility is a weapon. So now, the question becomes, if you've betrayed yourself before, how do you rebuild trust? How do you look yourself in the mirror and say, "This time will be different," and mean it? That's what we're diving into. And it may be the most important shift of all, because this isn't just about focus or discipline. It's about becoming someone you trust again. Before we go, if this part hit home, drop a comment saying, "I'm done betraying myself." And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, because the next part is going to be a turning point. You've broken promises to yourself. You've started habits you didn't finish. You've said, "I'll do it tomorrow," and watch that tomorrow stretch into months. And the truth? You're not alone. Even Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, struggled to get out of bed. One morning, he wrote in his journal, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work. I am a human being. I was born to do this." Let that sink in. So no, your inconsistency isn't proof that you're weak. It's proof that you're human. But here's the Stoic twist. They didn't judge themselves for slipping. They just didn't let the slip define them. You don't rebuild trust by thinking harder. You rebuild it by doing one hard thing today, and doing it again tomorrow, and again the day after. So let me walk you through how to rebuild your self-trust like a Stoic. 1. Shrink the promise. Raise the standard. Don't start with 10 new habits. Start with 1. Don't aim to read 50 pages. Read 2, but do it every single day, because it's not the size of the task that matters. It's the signal it sends. I follow through. 2. Create an unbreakable non-negotiable. Pick one habit, just one, that becomes your anchor. No matter how tired, how late, how chaotic life gets, you do it. Even Marcus had his journal, his morning reflections, his walks. Make yours simple, but treat it like oxygen. 3. Talk to yourself like a warrior, not a victim. The voice in your head matters. The Stoics didn't wallow, they reframed. Instead of "I'm messed up again," they'd say, "This is a test of character." Instead of "I'm too tired," they'd ask, "What would a disciplined man do next?" Because your self-talk builds your identity in real time. And here's the powerful part. Every time you keep a small promise, you cast a vote for the person you want to be, you stack evidence that says, "I'm not flaky. I'm not undisciplined. I'm not broken. I'm becoming someone I can trust." This is what Marcus did. He didn't rely on motivation. He reminded himself, "I was born to do this. So were you. You were born to carry responsibility, to shoulder discomfort, to rise when it would be easier to collapse. But you need one moment, one act of integrity today to reignite that fire." And that's where we're going next, because the final Stoic mindset shift will change how you approach every single day, especially the days when motivation dies, especially when no one's clapping, especially when you feel like giving up again. Next up is the shift that glues all of this together, the quiet force behind every Stoic warrior. Let's go there now. When most people talk about discipline, they talk about grit, they talk about force, they talk about waking up at 4 a.m. and crushing your to-do list. But the Stoics? They saw discipline differently. They saw it as devotion, not devotion to success, not even devotion to productivity, but devotion to something bigger, to who you're becoming. Marcus Aurelius didn't journal every morning because he had to. He did it because it reminded him of his place in the world, his duty as a man, his role in the greater order of things. Seneca didn't study philosophy and write essays because it made him look wise. He did it to discipline his soul, to return to virtue again and again, to make sure he was acting in alignment with nature and reason and honor. You're not consistent because you have a great routine. You're consistent because you care, because you're loyal to a vision of yourself you haven't fully lived yet, but you can feel it. It's close. That version of you that shows up daily, that doesn't flinch, that doesn't need external applause. So here's the truth. If discipline feels like a burden, you're aiming at the wrong thing. But if discipline feels like a devotion, you'll keep going even when it hurts, even when no one's watching, even when the results haven't arrived. Ask yourself, what am I really loyal to? My comfort or my character? What would happen if you stopped chasing motivation and started moving from meaning instead? Because here's the paradox. The Stoics didn't force themselves to be consistent. They became consistent by aligning their actions with their highest values. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." That's devotion. That's discipline without burnout. That's where consistency is born. So don't just track habits, track who you're becoming. Don't just fight laziness. Fall in love with your mission. Don't just show up because it's sacred. If that hit you, drop a comment below and say, "I choose devotion." It's not just a phrase, it's a posture, it's a path. It's how you'll keep walking when everyone else quits. And if this video has lit something in you, something quiet but powerful, tap that subscribe button and stay on this path with us. Because in the next part, we're stepping into the final stretch, the part that ties everything together, the Stoic secret weapon that kept them calm in chaos, consistent in failure, and focused even in pain. Every consistent person you admire was once inconsistent, was once unsure, was once exactly where you are right now, staring at the mountain, feeling the resistance, hearing the voice that whispers, "You've tried before and failed." But they did one thing that changed everything. They took the first step, and they took it with conviction. See, Stoicism teaches us not to control outcomes, but to control what we initiate, what we move toward, what we choose to begin. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter." Not that you do the perfect thing, just the right thing, right now, right here. That first act of reaching for your journal, of leaving the house for a walk, of sitting down to study, of opening your laptop to write. That first act becomes an echo. And if you listen closely, that echo isn't just noise. It's a signal, a ripple that tells your nervous system, "I do what matters, even when it's small, even when it's quiet, even when the world doesn't clap." Consistency is not built in a day. It's built in the moment after you almost quit and decide not to. It's built in that first breath you take before doing the hard thing. That breath is sacred. because it carries everything: fear, courage, doubt, and discipline. And yet, you act anyway. The Stoics didn't believe in motivation. They believed in momentum, and momentum begins with movement. One step, then another, then another. You don't have to see the whole staircase. You just have to take the first solid step. Do it poorly, do it nervously, but do it anyway. And then echo it, repeat it, reverberate it into your next day, and the next, until your life becomes one long, sacred rhythm of small steps done well. That's how Stoics stayed consistent in chaos. They didn't obsess about results. They honored the ritual of action. So the question isn't, how do I stay consistent forever? The question is, what first step do I need to echo today? Type your answer below. Tell me the one small step you're taking today to reclaim your focus, because the next part is coming, and it will show you the greatest internal test every Stoic faces. Consistency in isolation, when no one sees you, when no one rewards you, when your only witness is your own conscience. That's where the real transformation begins. Stay with me. We're getting closer to the core. It's easy to post a win, to share your progress, to talk about your routine. When it's working, when the metrics are climbing, when the world is clapping. But what about the quiet days? The invisible days? The days when your effort echoes into silence. This is where most people disappear, because there are no dopamine hits, no applause, no reassurance. Just you, your craft, and your conviction. But this is exactly where the Stoic flourishes. In the shadows, in the silence, in the solitude. Epictetus reminds us, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. That doesn't happen on stage. It happens in your room at 6 a.m., when you could sleep in, but choose to rise. It happens when you work through frustration, when you write one more sentence, read one more page, run one more mile. Not because anyone is watching, but because you are. The Stoic warrior doesn't rely on external motivation. They cultivate an internal compass that says, this is who I am, even when no one sees. Because true consistency isn't about public validation. It's about private integrity. It's about doing what you said you'd do, even when your name isn't trending, even when the world forgets you, even when the results delay. That's how you build character, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows, not through praise, but through perseverance. If you're waking up early and no one notices, good. If you're practicing and no one claps, perfect. If you're showing up and the numbers aren't moving, beautiful. Because you're not chasing the outcome, you're becoming the type of person who shows up, and that person cannot lose. So here's your reminder. The quiet work compounds. The invisible effort accumulates. The seed grows in darkness before it breaks through the light. Stay hidden if you must. Stay unseen if it's required. But stay true, because everything you do in secret is building something sacred. Let's return to one of the greatest Stoic truths, that discipline is destiny, and how your small, consistent acts today determine the direction of your entire life. So if this spoke to you, pause, take a breath, and prepare to go deeper, because what you do next, that quiet, private choice, might just change everything. If there's one Stoic law that threads through every word of Epictetus, every lesson of Marcus Aurelius, every silent sacrifice of the Roman soldier, it's this: discipline shapes fate. It's not talent, not motivation, not luck, but your daily rituals, your deliberate restraint, your unwavering focus. Discipline is not punishment. It's preparation. It's a quiet contract you sign with your future, not flashy, not glamorous, but transformational. The Stoics didn't become legends by accident. They became legends because they understood that every moment mattered, that every small decision was a vote for the person they were becoming. Consistency doesn't require hype. It requires honor, the honor of showing up, even when life is hard, even when your body aches, even when your mind rebels. Marcus wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That's discipline, moral, mental, physical, lived out in every breath, every pause, every action. When you choose the hard path, when you do what you said you would do, even when it's inconvenient, you are casting a vote for greatness, for peace, for inner power. Every time you delay gratification, you're stepping into your potential. Every time you show up, you're sending a message to your future self. I've got you. Not, maybe, not if I feel like it, but every single day. Discipline doesn't restrict you. It releases you. It frees you from chaos, from regret, from the tyranny of mood. It gives you clarity, control, and ultimately, freedom, because when you are disciplined, you don't have to wait for motivation. You don't have to beg for focus. You are already moving, already executing, already winning the quiet war. If you've watched this far, you're not just interested in consistency. You're ready for it. You're ready to become dangerous to distraction and magnetic to meaning. And now, one final reminder. One last truth to keep close when the journey gets heavy. When you feel lost, when the fire dims, come back to this. Because consistency isn't a strategy, it's who you are. And that makes you unstoppable. There will be days when the fire feels dim, when your effort feels invisible, when the noise of the world feels louder than the voice within you. And in those moments, you'll be tempted to stop, to say, what's the point? Who even notices? Why keep going? That's when you must return to the flame, not the flame outside, but the one within. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Dig within. Within is the wellspring of good, and it is always ready to bubble up if you just dig." This is the core of Stoic consistency. You do not depend on external validation. You do not wait for applause. You dig when it's dark, dig when it's cold, dig when your hands are shaking and your heart is weary, because beneath all that doubt, beneath all that noise, is a burning truth. You were not made to quit. You were not made to wander aimlessly. You were made to build, brick by brick, habit by habit, virtue by virtue. When the world pulls you in 1,000 directions, pull yourself back, back to your breath, back to the present, back to what you can control, your actions, your attitude, your integrity. The flame doesn't need to be a wildfire every day. Some days, it's a flicker, and that's enough, because even a flicker, when protected, can light a path through the storm. So here's what you do. You wake up, you do your task, you hold your promise, you sharpen your mind, and you walk your path, not loudly, but steadily, because real power doesn't shout, it endures. And in a distracted world, a consistent man becomes rare, respected, unshakable, and magnetic. You become the one others look to when everything around them falls apart. So if you're here, still watching, still absorbing, still becoming, you're already different. You're already dangerous. Don't let that flame die. Not now, not ever. Subscribe if this message lit something in you, and comment the word unwavering below if you're ready to carry the flame forward. Through resistance, through exhaustion, through every season of life. Because you don't need perfect conditions, you only need one thing: to begin again, every day, without fail. That, my friend, is how you become unstoppable. That is how you become stoic. And that is how you stay consistent. Until next time, keep the flame alive, keep walking, and keep building.